Shallan asks herself if she's destined to murder every one of her mentors. So my question was, could this one day include Wit?
See, I think Shallan is being a melodramatic 25-year-old. I don't think she's destined to kill. I think just because, like, she's looking for causation here and not correlation.
You don't think it's a pattern? Hello, I'm Mel.
And I'm Belle.
And this is Mel and Belle.
Woo!
Welcome, everyone, to the 4th episode of Crem-talking Wind and Truth. This is part 2 of day 1.
Today, we're just going to talk about Shallan's half of day 1 and also any other miscellaneous things we didn't get to cover in the first half because Kaladin just takes up so much of our attention.
As he should.
As he should. But you know, Shallan needs her time to shine. So with that, let's get started.
Shallan's POV is mostly fighting for her life.
Yeah.
We gotta get out of everlasting integrity and survive to make it to the Oathgate in Aesir.
You get a little Shallan and Wit moment where Shallan talks to Wit through the Seon. They kind of just talk to people. Like I had Calic in the last one. That's from one of their conversations that they had where they just kind of like talk about things. And that is specifically that conversation where Collect talks about Shallan having 2 Spren. I had to think about this because I forgot about Testament in the predictions video, and so I had to ask myself if Testament existing really does anything. And you know what? I'll take it back. Shallan has room to grow because we need to figure out what's going on with Testament. Testament is her way of finally like facing things heads on. So if like the last 4 books have been Shallan weaving in between her issues, this is her she's finally gonna face those in this book.
Weaving.
No, I didn't do it on purpose. Specifically, I pulled a quote that I was like, this is where Shallan's at. It's on page 95. For years, Shallan had hated herself. Now she nearly feared herself. That was progress. And I think that's really good, really succinct. I was like, Brandon Sanderson was doing good with these lines in terms of like thinking about how long and large the Stormlight archive is to be able to sum up some of your characters' issues in such 2-3 sentence things. Fantastic.
I agree. On my reread, I was like, man, this is good writing. Maybe it's the plot that like some people had issue with, or the pacing, or I don't even know, but there's some really good one-liners or like 2-sentencers, I guess.
It's a mixed bag. If a book is over 1,300 pages long, I hope he's got some good one-liners in there. I think it's just the difference between having some good one-liners and having like every sentence is a good one-liner, which, you know, that doesn't happen a lot. Like those are like masterpieces, and I think that's a really high thing to aim for, but I think there are books that get close. And so, I don't know. I'm intrigued to see this because I have a feeling he's gonna have a lot of great one-liners, as one is wont to do with a book this large. But I don't know if that amount is gonna be proportional to how big the book actually is. The question is never if Brandon's a good writer. He's gotta be at this point. The question is, does he really need to write so much? Is there a way for him to write what he has written more succinctly that then leads for that to be more powerful? Like, I think the reason why these sentences are great are because they are one-lines, but he does kind of like repeat things and go on, and so sometimes I'm like, just leave him at the one-lines, just leave it at this. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, it makes sense what you're saying.
So Shallan. This is where we find out that we're gonna go fight or go find Ba-Ado-Mishram. I saw in your notes that you abbreviated her name as Bam, so I'll also call her Bam, because I can't pronounce it.
You gotta break it up into the small pieces.
Nope.
Ba-Ado-Mishram. No?
No, it's Bam.
It's Bam.
It's Bam. We're gonna go find her. I forgot that she's doing this to try to get a heads up on the Ghostbloods. So to kind of keep talking, to continue that conversation on whether or not, like, the Ghostbloods being involved feels like it's just suddenly been shoved in. No, they're still there. They've been there. It feels like Shallan's going on this quest because it will affect everything else, but also she's got her big enemy are the Ghostbloods.
The Ghostbloods are kind of cutthroat. I like them. Would you ever be a Ghostblood, Bill?
Yeah, and I would, because it feels like maybe I'm just wrong, but they're one of the only organizations that are moving between the worlds in the Cosmere, and I feel like that would be kind of like the travel agency of the Cosmere. Like, I joined the Ghostbloods just so I could hop around the different planets and do things and sightsee on my free time while also doing whatever they want me to do. It just feels like I don't know about safe is the word, but structured way. Well, compared to other, like, world hoppers that we know of, they chaotically go place to place. It's not entirely clear why they're in one place versus the other. You also don't know how many planets they did. I just feel like the Ghostbloods, I have a better chance of going to more planets in the Cosmere and, like, experiencing more things without being wit.
That's definitely true. I think you'd make a good Ghostblood, Belle. I think that it'd be interesting. I think of it almost like the CIA of the Cosmere. Mm-hmm. It's all espionage. And that's part of why Shallan would have been the perfect pick for them. And it was a big deal for her to finally reject that and say no after so long of, I think the word that they use here is flirting with the Ghostbloods. Because that is really what she was doing for most of her arc.
I think I also said in the predictions video that Brandon would bring everybody together first before separating them on their own ways. And you kind of see that with Kaladin. Kaladin is kind of just waiting around while he's doing things. And then we're bringing Shallan and Adolin back from Shadesmar finally. And when they finally do leave, as you said, they get attacked by singers, which is really interesting because there's just a big battle. I truly love the fact that now, like, Shallan's keeping Adolin alive. I'll wait for the moment when my boy can keep himself alive. Shallan says the fourth ideal. Very cool. I love a woman in shard plate. So does Adolin. Sorry.
I love it. I love a woman in shard plate.
Put that on a shirt.
I just can't imagine shard plate without the little Spren in Kate Redding's voice being Shallan, Shallan, Shallan.
Yeah.
I really think that the fight scene was done well. It was very cinematic.
It really grabbed your attention.
Absolutely. Like, I could just imagine it happening. There's a part where Adolin is grabbing things out of his bag and Shallan's fighting a fused off, and all of a sudden there's like an axe in his head. She turns and Adolin's just there like throwing things. I'm assuming because Maya is, you know, a person, not a sword at the moment. And so they're just grabbing all the weapons that they had. She's like, you had that in there? just so fun, but also like you said, she's the one protecting Adolin. They're working together, so you kind of can see them as a team in this fight.
Which we haven't seen them fight together yet, I don't think. I feel like we've seen Shallan fight separately. We have seen Adolin and Kaladin fight along together, so several times. So it's great to get Adolin and Shallan fighting together.
Yeah, and to see how they just complement each other.
Yeah.
I know it was like not supposed to be a fun moment, but it was kind of fun for me. And the reread knowing that they're gonna be okay. Like, it was just fun. In this part at the very beginning, there's a lot of dialogue explaining things.
Yes.
Dialogue explaining Shallan's different altars, dialogue explaining the nature of the Deadeye Spren, considering what the dynamic is going to be with Testament and Pattern, having them both. So there's a lot of like explanations. I thought it was really funny how Wit didn't really explain much when they talked to him, and so Shallan finding out that Navani is bonded to the sibling and is now a bondsmith, and she's like, wait, hold up. And it also makes you realize how long they were in lasting integrity. That they were gone for a time, or maybe just how short of a time span it is, like that end part of Rhythm of War when everything's happening all at once, because it feels like, oh, Navani's been bonded to the sibling forever, but they're just now finding out about it. Or she makes a comment about Wit's probably laughing to himself about all the stuff he left out of the conversation and did not communicate to us. Shallan asks herself if she's destined to murder every one of her mentors. So my question was, could this one day include Wit?
See, I think Shallan is being a melodramatic 25-year-old. I don't think she's destined to kill. I think just because, like, she's looking for causation here and not correlation.
You don't think it's a pattern?
No. Okay, let me put it to you this way. The difference is I feel like all of Shallan's mentors don't have Shallan's best interests in mind. Even Shallan's mom. I think you get beforehand, like, they really weren't the happiest family. She wasn't the best mom. She, let's face it, tried to kill her daughter after finding out that she was a Radiant. She can't be faulted for that one. That's self-defense. The second girl, she was only going to be out for herself from the very beginning, and if she at any point had reason to turn against Shallan, she would have. So along those lines, I guess everyone that Shallan has killed, all of her mentors, technically they would also kill her too. Like, Murray's would kill her with no hesitance as well. I don't think Wit would kill Shallan, so I don't think Shallan will ever kill Wit. But it is, you are correct that it's interesting that Brandon Sanderson decided to include that within Shallan's thoughts, because that does kind of place that thought there.
She's just being melodramatic.
She's just being melodramatic. I'm sorry. There's just...
No, I like it. I like it. It is true. It's true. Question.
Yeah.
Would you have brought the horse?
Would I have brought the horse? What are my options here? I had to either bring Gallant with me or leave him and then he would go on the boat. I'm bringing my horse, man. I'm sorry. He seems like he can fly anyways, and I think we find out that, like, Ryshadium are tech. That's the other thing. Go back to the Spren conversation. That Ryshadium are technically music Spren, and I want to know, it feels like they're Spren that were pulled physically to the physical realm. So, just say.
Belle.
What?
That's good.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Cause I think that's the thing, that, like, Sureblood, I think that's what its name was. We see it again as a music Spren, and it just kind of felt like the music Spren went back, like, Sureblood may have died, but he just went back to the cognitive world. And I think that's a pretty popular trope within fantasy, is that, like, animals can usually go in between realms pretty easily. I think the standard is like cats. Like Coraline, like the cat in Coraline is very easy, can go into the other mother's world and still also come back. Like that's the same cat. So I feel like horses, I was like, that makes sense. They come in and they come out.
It would just make sense that Ryshadium are Roshar's cats. Like, I mean,
they only have crabs. What else are they supposed to have?
They're so sassy and personality driven.
No, that makes sense.
They only do what they want to do. They'll follow you. They'll do what you want. But you have to understand that they do what you want because they also want it. Not just because you want it.
Yeah, that's a cat. Yeah.
So, fitting. It makes sense.
Oh, but yeah.
Another thing that we learn about when we're talking to Kalek, when Shallan is talking to Kalek, is the Lightweaver abilities that she has in addition to the Lightweaver abilities that are standard. So the standard Lightweaver abilities that we already know about are Illumination, right? The ability to Lightweave. And the other one is Transformation. So that's when they reach into Shadesmar, try to turn a stick into fire, and hopefully the stick will do what you want it to, but probably not because the stick likes being a stick. Those are the two regular powers that Lightweavers have. And so Shallan has now Fortune and Substantiation. And so Fortune we see several times throughout Shallan's story. It's not a new thing. She draws people sometimes, and she draws them how they could be. So it's kind of a form of fortune telling, right? Fortune telling. But Colette explains that it's more than that. It's like reaching in, seeing who a person really is and what they have the potential to be. I find that a little bit more deep than just telling the future.
It's like being able to look at all the different timelines and universes and being like, you have the capability to do this in another timeline or in another universe kind of thing. And she does do that. She does it with Colette. She's done it from the very beginning. So like, she's had this power for a while. It's just interesting that we're now aware of. And kind of to your point about like rereading again and going through and being like, oh, Shallan, I see you. I see all the different things you're going. You're a much powerful being from the very beginning that we are aware of.
Substantiation is really proof of that she can take a light weaving, she can take her illumination power, right, create the illusion of something, and then make it have physical form. So Radiant, not her in the persona of Radiant, but she light weaves a Radiant that then fights off the fused, makes a hit, and there's real, it says like there was real blood.
Just had a thought here.
Yeah.
Is this why Shallan has multiple personalities? It's not just the way she copes, it's because she has the ability to see who she could be at any point in any universe or in the timeline. Kind of the way like she does for other people when she draws them in the way that they want to be in that moment. She herself projects these identities, what she wants to be in that moment. And that's where they all come from. And I think maybe like, at that point, like Formless was just the mess of all of them.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be the lore person, Belle.
Oh, sorry.
I'm supposed to be the lore person, and here you are coming up with some awesome theories. That is awesome. That's a really, really neat point. I think that there's something to that.
Sorry. Anyways, and okay, just to continue the lore. I know, your job. I'm sorry.
No,
I think that's...
No, I'm just saying you can't do it better than me, okay?
That's also why I was fascinated by Syl and Kaladin, because I'm kind of curious if we count the wind as like a spren, like the equivalent of the Stormfather. Will Kaladin bond the wind? Has he kind of already done it? Or like, you know, the way you say your first oath, has he kind of already done that with the wind? And is he technically double bonded, and that's why Syl is doing his thing?
There's something special about Kaladin.
And I think maybe like if we want to talk about like the specialness of like from the beginning, because you have Yasna, you have Dalinar, you have Navani, you have all of these Radiants who arguably could be more important, and they are part of our like main cast, but we start Way of Kings with like these main two, and maybe that's like a connection between the two of them, that technically they're like extra important and extra like powerful because of them getting double bonds.
Okay, so idea. Okay.
Yeah.
We know Tien is Kaladin's brother who passed away.
Yeah.
And he was going to be a Lightweaver.
Yes.
So something that we didn't talk about but was interesting to me in Kaladin's POV in day one is that moment where he's getting a fitting for his uniform.
And he finds his rock.
A rock in the pocket. So there's multiple instances where he finds this physical thing like that Tien left for him, and we don't really know where it came from. But as you were saying that, I was just thinking like substantiation, like maybe Tien in the cognitive realm or in the beyond or wherever Tien is right now is able to light weave and create something physical.
See, it's cute that you think it's Tien. My thought is like, if he's doing this with Syl, is it possible he has a similar capability? Oh gosh, wait. Mel, we're cooking here.
We're cooking up stew. We're stewing Bridge 4.
Yes. I'm trying to find the conversation. He's talking to Syl. Basically, he's talking about like being like depressed or whatever, and Syl kind of was like, you should stop that, like don't make yourself feel first. And he's like, no, because I know now how to bring myself out of it, and the rock showing up in his pocket is kind of like a way. So I wonder if it's like the same way Shallan's stuff has been all subconscious, so is Kaladin's. And so the rocks and everything, we want to think it's magical, that it's Tien, but it's actually Kaladin's like subconscious, or maybe even the wind, putting these reminders in Kaladin's like pockets, these items to keep him on track. But it feels like he has the tools, and he's more aware of the tools of how to keep himself, I don't want to say happy, but like afloat. I think that there's something here. There's something here.
We're gonna have to do a deep dive maybe into potential secondary powers and see if there's a connection maybe between Windrunners and Lightweavers, that they share this power of substantiation maybe as a secondary. Very possible.
There's something here, because I was gonna save this for when we're talking about the trio saying goodbye, but Shallan tells Kaladin, I wrote this down, it's really interesting. Reality warps around you, Kaladin. It always has. And that line coming after the whole Shallan conversation about her powers just made me like think, like, is this her weird powers acting up? Is she just saying stuff? Like, I feel like this is something like, this is an acknowledgement that Kaladin also has something going on. That as much as like Shallan can predict and like do things, like Kaladin is literally changing the world around him.
I didn't even consider the potential possibility that he's bonding the wind. That's something that we'll have to look for in this book, because that's not something I thought about in my first read, and so I'd be interested to see if there are other signs of that as we go along.
The wind does not think like a person. This should not surprise anyone who has familiarity with a Spren. I think that's a confirmation that the wind is a Spren. Is that train of thought? Does that track?
It does. I mean, at least functioning like a Spren. There's other types of bonds. There's the bond between Seons and Elantrians. There's also, on Roshar, there's that bond between the Ryshadium and the Riders, right?
Yes.
So that's a bond of its own as well. Maybe not as strict of a bond that has to follow certain rules and progresses with oaths the way that a Radiance bond would. But I don't see why not. If it quacks like a Spren and it walks like a Spren.
It's a Spren. Huh.
Could be a Spren. Could bond like a Spren.
I'm so excited. I feel like the more we talk, the more you put us in a room, I'm like, yes, let's keep reading. Let's keep going. Yes. So I guess that will just naturally trail into Shallan and Adolin and Kaladin saying goodbye. Kaladin did the library scene and then is flying out with Seth in order to make the track across over to where they are going. And Shallan and Adolin also just happen to be coming back after their fight, coming back from the Shadesmar in that same location. And so they just get their cute little flying by, like 5-minute conversation where they get to say goodbye. This book does a very good job of being aware of itself. The whole reason why day one is Shallan and Kaladin's perspective is because it's poetic. She acknowledges that on page 114, you and I were there at the start, we meet at the end. And I think that's just chef's kiss. Couldn't put it better myself, Shallan. This is also Shallan telling Kaladin to come back. So now we have two people. So we have Dalinar and Shallan that are, and Adolin probably, we'll throw Adolin in there, who are insisting that Kaladin return from his journey that he doesn't think he's returning from.
I was feeling pretty doom and gloom on my first read at this point in the book because I was thinking all the signs are pointing to death, right, for Kaladin. But not quite. It's open-ended. There's people saying goodbye that are saying you're going to be right back. Scar's one of them, and then here Shallan says, at the end, what is it? They're all going to go drink together.
Yeah.
And I think that that's also a cool representation of how they've bonded. They're friends and they're young, and it's hard to think that this is the end and they won't be able to come back together and do it again.
But I think that perfectly, end of day one, sets up what we're doing, what's going on, where we're going. A lot of emotional moments, a lot of information dumping, but mostly just setting Kaladin and Seth and then Shallan and Adolin up on their perspective journeys. I'm going to assume in day 2 we start finding out what everybody else is doing, and we'll go from there. I did have some random things that I couldn't figure out where else to put in the video, so I'm just putting them at the end here.
Your miscellaneous section?
My random thoughts, yeah. So it's on page 27. It says, if Dalinar lost, he had to join Odium, become fused, and help conquer the Cosmere. Kaladin wanted to think that the Radiance wouldn't follow as well, but he wasn't certain. That is the stakes. That is all of the stakes of what is going on Roshar and why the Ghostbloods are here. I don't know if they had the ability to tell the future or if they just had a feeling, but the idea of not just Dalinar, Dalinar becoming infused, terrifying already on its own. You could do some damage to the Cosmere with that. Dalinar and the Radiance, that's a whole other story. That is world-ending, world-conquering power. So the Ghostbloods being here makes perfect sense.
It's Cosmere relevant. Anything that has to do with Odium. If Odium gets out of the Rosharan system, it affects everyone.
And I do wonder, they were there to keep Odium there, but then the longer that they've been on Roshar, the more they've realized, no, there's a lot more going on this planet that's more dangerous to us than just Odium. On a lighter note, I wanted to talk about Orden.
Okay.
I know, it's such a small moment. I love the image of him playing with Syl, but that also means Orden, this next generation, they're growing up around Spren, and I'm kind of wondering, what does this change for them? Not just Spren, because Kaladin grew up around Spren, they're just emotion Spren, but our Radiant Spren, what does that change? That are they more comfortable with the idea of cognizant beings?
When you were saying that, I didn't just think of Orden, but I think of that little boy who was protected by Kaladin's shard plate at the end of Rhythm of War. And we get an interlude with that little boy, and then we see him again in that fight. I kept thinking of this little boy and how he has so much hope for the world because the Radiants are there and that things are going to be okay. At the same time, we know that post these 10 days, because of the Knights of Wind and Truth excerpts, that there will be less Spren.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, they make it through, but there will be less Spren. Orden may be around Spren now, but might not be as much Spren around. But I love you bringing up the point that there's a new generation.
Yes.
There's going to be a time skip between this book and the next book.
We're already on the same track.
Exactly. So
that's where I was going next.
Is it? A lot of these younger people are going to be some of our main characters, probably.
Yeah. Is Urithiru the most advanced technology we've seen so far in the Cosmere?
I mean, it depends on how you define technology. In terms of utilizing the magic system, yeah, it's a huge, complex building that it's an entire network of fabrials working together.
I think my thought process was it's not spaceships, but it is basically a smart house, and I feel like there's a lot of complicated things that go into that. I guess they have this on Scadrial. Running water is probably a very important one. I would love to do a video where we break down the technology and just talk about where everybody's at, because obviously Mistborn Era 1, they didn't have running water. Era 2, pretty sure they do. Yumi in the Nightmare Painter has running water. You run a ramen shop, you got running water. I don't know. It was just one of those things that popped out to me because I think the Cosmere and then Roshar specifically, and then a couple of the other planets, I think the planet from Elantris, the planet from Warbreaker, These all feel like medieval, non-technologically advanced civilizations. Urithiru just being like, they have running water, they have thermostats, basically, that controls and changes depending on what floor you're at. So, like, you know, the higher you go, it'll keep it consistent. So I assume that's more heating. There was just like a lot of complicated things that like goes on within Urithiru that I was like, space travel? Urithiru.
I know we'll see more technology, right, in Isles of the Emberdark, which I haven't finished yet.
I haven't even started. We'll do that one next.
There will be more. I mean, the magic systems are so awesome in that, like, they are science, right? Like, there's like magic. It really blurs the lines between magic and science, and that's part of what I love so much about the Cosmere, because there's a scientific process to getting the magic to work, and kind of similar to our own world where computer screens and lights and things 100, 200 years ago would be absolute magic to people. Whereas now, that's just technology. We've just figured it out. What is science, but not magic, right? So I think that the Cosmere makes my life a little bit more magical.
Probably a conversation for another day, but I think this is something Brandon does really well, and then something that I've just really enjoyed. Modern day sci-fi and fantasy in general, I feel like there is a push, and maybe this is like a cultural thing that you're, like you were saying, like things have come so far that like things that we thought were science fiction or like magic are real. And so with that in that mind, it kind of feels like we can look back and see that like science fiction and fantasy are a lot more similar than we think they are. Whether or not something is magic or science, they're still explaining things that we didn't originally think were possible. A lot of fantasy and sci-fi authors are playing with that, and Brandon Sanderson specifically does that really well. And then just one more random thought that I put on its own. These are two quotes. One is from Wit, the other is from Calic. I'm gonna read them. Non sequiturs that ended up relevant were the daggers he kept strapped to his boots to be employed when his foes were distracted. I love this because this is basically Brandon revealing the way he writes. I feel like this is a very like meta commentary on what's gonna happen. Things that we weren't expecting to be relevant become relevant, and then he's gonna use them in the narrative when we're not expecting it. I feel like this man has done this to me before. And Wit's very a meta character in general in his ability to jump between the Cosmere, and I feel like anytime he talks about like the way of storytelling, it's just Brandon putting his thoughts out into the world. It's his professor's persona coming out.
When he talks about art or novelty.
Yes. Calic also says not much later, just because something is fleeting, do not imagine it to be unimportant. And likewise, just because something is eternal, do not assume it to be relevant. I just feel like these two quotes put together on day one is significant. I feel like this is Brandon Sanderson being like, hey guys, something you weren't expecting that didn't seem relevant is relevant and is going to come up. I also feel like that also might be like a conversation with the heralds, that the heralds aren't as important as you think they're going to be in the big battle. I don't know. I'm intrigued. There's something going on here. So I just wanted to point those out before we move on from day one.
That's valuable. That second quote especially, like I never would have thought of it that way in terms of the writing and the plot. I just thought of it as Kalek being sad. And I learned what non sequiturs mean.
It is legitimately a hard literary device being used in a fiction novel, and I'm a sucker for when that happens. The second he said that, I was like, okay, we are doing something else here. It stands out.
Well, that's day one.
Woo! Day one.
It's been a long day here on Roshar. There's been so much.
It's 2 videos worth of a long day on Roshar.
Belle, we did it.
There's 9 more to go.
So this has been part 2 of day 1 of Crem-talking Wind and Truth. Is that a long enough title for you, Belle?
I think so.
Do you like it?
I do.
Thank you for teaching me.
Thank you for teaching me. I'm sure I learned something. I did. I think your conversation about Shallan's powers specifically, getting into the specifics. And also, thank you guys for sticking around and listening to us. If you happen to miss part 1, go back. We did talk about Kaladin. If you're wondering what was going on, Kaladin's in the first part. But hopefully you enjoyed exploring day 1 with us. We hope to keep this going. Of course, we still have the interludes to do, and then we move on to day 2.
Remember to like, comment, subscribe, share, support our channel.
Hopefully we'll see you next time. But in the meanwhile, read books,
Drink water.
and be you. Bye!
Bye.